Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I made this beautiful skirt and blouse. I know this is something you would like to know more about. Please keep watching, and if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so that you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. These are the fabrics I'll be working with. The plain fabric is for the skirt and it is 2 yards, while the printed fabric is for the top and it is also 2 yards. So depending on the size of the person, you will need about 2 yards of each of the fabrics you would like to mix together, and you can decide not to mix also. I'll start by cutting the skirt first and then we'll move to the top. But first, this is the back of the skirt and it is what I am cutting first. My fabric is folded into two, and what I'm doing here is to mark out my zip allowance. I'll start marking by leaving 2 inches on the tape because I'll be adding a waistband of 2 inches. So at the top of the fabric there is the waistline, followed by the hip line, then the knee line and the full length of the skirt. The measurements I'll be marking out now, I'll start from that zip line I have. Don't forget I have a zip allowance of 1.5 inches there. I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4. I'll mark it, and I'll also mark 2 inches allowance also. And on the hip line, I'll go in with the hip measurements divided by 4 plus 2 inches allowance. And on the knee line, whatever I have as the hip measurement, I'll deduct 1 from it and I'll mark it on the knee line. And same thing, I'll be marking at the full length of the skirt, the same measurement I marked on the knee line. I'll connect all those points I marked out on the fabric and I'll cut it out. I want to cut out the front of the skirt now. There's going to be a slit at the front of the skirt. So what I'm doing now is to use the back of the skirt I cut out earlier to cut out the front. I'll cut out the same thing. The 1.5 inches allowance on the back will be used for the slit allowance in front. So I'm cutting out the exact same thing I cut out for the back. The only difference is that the front part is on fold now. To mark out the slit, you need to decide the side of the front part you want the slit to be on. For this project, the slit will be on the left side. So what you are going to do now is from the midpoint that I have there, you are going to divide that midpoint into 2 on the waistline. And whatever measurement you have, you take it down all the way from the waist to the hem and you connect with a ruler. While cutting, please note that you are only cutting one piece. You're not cutting the 2 pieces together. You're just cutting one piece, and that is the part of the slit. I placed my lining on the table and I placed the front piece on the lining. I'm cutting out the slit part on the lining now. So just cut it out, the same thing you have. Make sure that the right side of the fabric is facing the right side of the lining. I'm cutting it out, and once I'm done cutting out, I'll cut it through and I'll notch that part of the slit that is facing each other. So I'll notch it so that I can know that that is the part of the slit. And I'll go over to the sewing machine now and stitch that part. I'll stitch it all the way down. And I'll do the same thing to the other piece. I'll stitch it from the top all the way down. This is the back of the skirt, and I've also cut out my lining, the same thing I have on the fabric. This is after I was done stitching the slit part and I went ahead to iron that part flat. The next thing is to mark out where you want the slit to start from. For this one, I am marking 20 inches and that is where the slit will start from. You can decide on which length you want yours to be. So for the back piece, I'll go ahead now and stitch the back of the skirt close, but I'll leave the zip part where I'll be putting my zip, I'll leave it open. I am done closing the back here, and the part where I'll be adding the zip is the one that is left opened, and this is what the front of the skirt is looking like. I went ahead to use hemming gum to secure that part down, and this is what we have. The next thing now is to go ahead and stitch the sides close. I'll go ahead and use the allowance I left on the skirt, the 2-inch allowance I left on the skirt to stitch it. But what you're going to do is that you're going to make sure that, because I'll be adding an elastic band to the waist of the skirt, you have to make sure that whatever you're taking on the waist measurements, you are leaving an allowance of at least 2 inch on the waistline for the elastic that you'll be adding. This is after joining the sides, and I went ahead to cut out my waistband. The width of the waistband I have here is 2 inches. 2 inches width. I cut out 3 inches width, and I folded in ½ inch on one side, and the other ½ inch is the one I'll be using to join the skirt. I placed the right side of the band on the wrong side of the skirt, and I'll go ahead and run a stitch all the way down. This is after running the stitch, and this is what we have. The next thing now is to add the elastic to the band. So this is what we're going to do. From the center front of the skirt, notch that center front, and from the center front you come out by the nipple to nipple measurement. For this one I'm working with, it is 10. So the nipple to nipple is 10 divided by 2 is 5. So from the center front you're going to mark that 5 inches, and from the center back you're going to mark that 5 inches, and you mark that point on the band. So from one marking to the other marking, you're going to use your tape to measure it. Whatever you have, divide it by 2, and that is the length of the elastic you are going to cut out. So you're going to place your elastic on the first marking and also on the other marking, and you're going to stitch it down. This is how you are going to pull it while stitching the band close. I'll go ahead to the sewing machine now to close the band, but when you get to the elastic part, this is how you are going to pull it and stitch. So you are going to pull that part and stitch. I'm done closing the band now, and this is what we have. From the part where you have the elastic, from one elastic to the other, you are going to run a stitch at the center. I'm not sure if you can see my own stitch on the center, but there is a stitch there. So from one elastic band to the other, you're going to run a stitch at the center. And the last thing for me to do now is to fix my zip, and that will be all on the skirt. For the top, I'll be using my armhole princess dart pattern. In case you don't know how to draft a armhole princess dart, I'll put the link in the description so that you can watch how I made mine. So that is what I'll be using for this top. I'll cut it out now and I'll transfer to fabric. This is the back pattern I have transferred to fabric, and I added ½ inch allowance at the top and bottom of the pattern, and also on the side I added 1.5 inches, and for the part where I'll be joining the pieces together I added ½ inch allowance. So go ahead and transfer your own patterns to fabric and also add the necessary allowance. I have also cut out my lining piece the same way I cut out the fabric. These are the front pieces, and I've also added the necessary allowance to the patterns, and I have also cut out my lining. I'll separate the patterns from the fabric now, and I'll go ahead and iron interfacing on the main fabric and also on the lining, and I'll bring it back and show you. I have added the interfacing here, and what I want to do now is to join the front pieces. So I'll go ahead and join the front pieces together, and I'll do the same thing to the lining piece also. These are the back pieces also. I've added the interfacing here too, and I'll go ahead and join the pieces together for the back. The same thing I'll do on the main fabric is what I'll also do on the lining. So go ahead and do the same thing to yours too. I am done joining the pieces together, and this is what we have. I went ahead to iron the seam flat, and also for the lining I'll go ahead now and use the lining to turn the neckline. So I'll go ahead and turn it around and I'll show you. For the back, I also went ahead to iron the seam line flat. I've done the same thing to the lining. The next thing I want to do now is to use the lining to turn the neckline and also the zip area. I'll go ahead to the sewing machine and use the lining to turn the neckline and also the zip area, and I'll bring it back and show you. To cut out the design in front of the top, I placed my fabric on the table and I placed the front pattern on the fabric. This fabric is not on fold, it's just a single piece. So the side I want to put the design is on the left side, so determine the side you want to put yours to. I left a space of ½ inch on the fabric before I placed my pattern paper on it, and from the center front there I went up by 2.5 inches, and at the down part I'm adding ½ inch allowance to the down part. And on the side I'm adding 1.5 inches. The same allowance I added on the main fabric is what I am also adding on this piece. From the 2.5 inches I marked at the top there, I'll connect it with a straight line to the side pattern. I'll fold in the pattern paper now, and I'll connect with a ruler from that side to the 2.5 inches. I went ahead to use the first piece I cut out to cut out the second piece, the orange fabric, and I added interfacing to the orange fabric. Cut out the orange fabric as if you are cutting out a lining for the first piece. I'll go ahead and use the iron to fold in the top of the fabric and also the part that will be at the center front. I'll fold in like ½ inch on both sides, and I'll bring it back and show you. This is after I was done folding with the iron, and this is what we have. The next thing I want to do now is to mark out the width of the design I want to place on the other piece. I'm marking out 2 inches now. I am marking out 2 inches at the top of the fabric and also on the side of the fabric, and once I'm done marking the 2 inches like you see me doing, I'll go ahead and add ½ inch allowance around the markings. I am cutting out now. Please take note of the part I am cutting out. Once I'm done cutting like this, I'll go ahead now and use the iron to fold in the ½ inch allowance, just the way you see me doing now. And at the sharp point there, I'll notch it so that I can be able to fold it in, Just fold in a way that the notched part is not showing. I'll place this design now on the other fabric, just the way you see me doing it now. Place it there. This is the way the design will look like at the end of the day, but first you move it back now and place the right side of the design on the wrong side of the fabric. Just watch what I'm doing. So you place the right side of the design on the wrong side of the fabric and you pin it down. Once you are done pinning, you go ahead and run a stitch all the way through the points you pinned. This is after I was done stitching, and this is what we have. Go ahead and trim off the excess at that point and turn it out. I will iron it now so that it stays flat. Go ahead and iron yours too. I'll go ahead now and make a top stitch on this part I am showing you, and I'll bring it back. These are the front and back pieces, and this was after I was done turning the neckline with the lining, and I went ahead to top stitch on the lining. This is what the back is looking like after I was done turning it with the lining. Before I join the sides together, the front and the back sides together, I'll first place the design I made on the front first and stitch it down. So this is what we have here. I'll place it down like this. But first, I added a dart to this design, so this one is optional. You can decide not to add that to yours. So now be mindful of the parts where you'll be stitching the sleeve on the armhole. So come down by ½ inch and come down by ½ inch before you place the design on the front. And this is what you're going to have. Place it like so, and go ahead and make a stitch on top of the stitch you have on the design first. Go ahead and stitch it down on the fabric. This is after I was done stitching, and this is what yours too should be looking like. You can see that I made another stitch on top of the stitch I already have. So that is what you're going to do. And now I'll go ahead and join the sides and the shoulder. I am done joining now, and I went ahead to iron. So the next thing for me to do now is to fix in the peplum part of the top. I've cut out my peplum already and I've turned it with a lining. What I have left to do now is to fix it to the waist of the top. I am done fixing the peplum here, and I added pleats on the peplum. The next thing for me to do now is to fix in the sleeves, and after fixing in the sleeves, I'll go ahead and fix the zip on the top, and I'll show you the finished look. Thank you guys for watching. Please like my video, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. Please turn on your notification bell so that you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Please follow me on Instagram at stitchedbyst. You can leave a video suggestion on what you'd like to see on my channel. You can send a DM on Instagram. And thank you guys for your support on my channel. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.